Hello, this is Patrick at OneCNC West, and what we're going to do in this training video is create this part using OneCNC Mill Expert. Now, to create this part, we're going to be using something called hybrid modeling. Hybrid modeling simply means that we're going to be using surfaces in conjunction with a solid model to create the final component. Now, you'll notice that if we take a look inside the layer browser, I have a layer called Dimensions. Let's turn that on. The dimension layer is going to provide us with all the coordinates and dimensions for our geometry, and this is going to make for a great reference to make sure that our geometry is right on track. Now, taking a look at the part, we can see that the part is symmetrical. So all we really need to do is just draw half of it, and then we can mirror that to save time. I think we should start by creating this outside boundary. So let's begin by doing that. I'm going to turn our dimensions layer off and head over to the command manager and select our line tool. Now, I want to use coordinate input for this. Our line's going to start at x0, y0, z0. So I'm going to click OK. Now I want the endpoint of the line to come down to y minus 4. That looks good, so I'm going to hit the enter key. That takes me to the z coordinate. I don't need to do anything there. I'll hit enter one more time, and that recycles the prompt and creates the line. Now it's waiting for the location for the next endpoint. This is going to be at x.875. Again, I'll hit the enter key, enter again, and then enter one more time to cycle through the axes. That looks great. So now it's looking for a new x coordinate. This is going to be x1.25. I'll hit the enter key, and for the y value, this is going to be minus 3. Very good. So I'll hit enter, enter again, and now that we're finished, we can hit the escape key on the keyboard. Very good. Now let's quickly turn our dimension layer on and off and make sure that we're right on track. That looks excellent. Now let's create the circles that represent the holes that we're going to be drilling. These holes have a diameter of 1/4 inch. We can see that up here. So our first hole is going to be at x.5 and the y value is going to be y minus 0.375. So let's create that. Again, I'll turn our dimension layer off. Let's head over here to the command manager, and now we're going to use our circle tools. This is going to have a diameter of 250 thousandths, so 0.25, and the coordinate for this is going to be x.5. Going to hit the enter key, minus 0.375. Again, I'll hit enter, and there's our very first hole created. Now for the second hole, it's going to use the exact same x coordinate. So I'll just hit the enter key, and the y value for this is going to be y minus 2.56. That looks good. Hit enter, enter. The next and third hole is going to be again at x.5. I'll hit the enter key, and now the y value is going to be y minus 3.5. Very good. Hit the enter key, enter one more time to cycle through, and then I can hit the escape key on the keyboard. Very good. Now these holes require a counterbore, and the counterbore has a diameter of 350 thousandths. These are going to be easy to create. We'll go back into circle. We'll change the diameter to 0.35. And now instead of using coordinate input, I'm just going to take my cursor and snap the arc center of the arcs or circles that we've already created. Now you'll know you're at the arc center when you see the little diamond. Just left click, and left click. And when you're done, you can right hand mouse click. All right, let's turn our dimension layer on and off and make sure that we're right on track. Very good. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to create this oval. This oval shape is the base of this boss. Now, to create the boss, we're going to create these two circles first. If we look at the dimensions, we can see that the circles have a radius of 300 thousandths. So let's create this circle first, all right? To do that, we know that the x value is going to be 0.5, and the y value is going to be y minus 2 inches, 60 thousandths. So let's create that. Let's turn our dimension layer off. Let's head over here to our circle command, and for the diameter, that's going to be 600 thousandths. Very good. All right, now the x value is going to be 0.5. Hit the enter key. The y value is going to be minus 2 inches, 60 thousandths. Very good. So we're going to hit enter, enter one more time to cycle through, and then we can hit the escape key on the keyboard. If we reference our dimensions layer, we can see that we're right on track. Let's create the remaining circle down here. It's going to have the same x value, but its location is y minus 3.5. In fact, we can actually snap this arc center to create this circle. So let's head back over into the command manager, select circle, diameter is already set at 600 thousandths. We can take our cursor and snap the center by left clicking, and when we're done, we can right hand mouse click. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Now let's take a look at creating this oval, this smaller oval. That represents the very top of the boss. Those circles have a radius of 250 thousandths. These circles are going to be easy to create. Let's do that. Let's turn our dimension layer off. Let's head over to the command manager. We're going to select circle, and this time the diameter is going to be 1/2 of an inch, 0.5. All we have to do is take our cursor, and just like before, just left click the very center of the existing arcs, just like that. All right, that's looking great. Let's zoom in a little bit. And now let's create the lines to complete the ovals that we're creating. To do that, we'll head back into the command manager, select the line tool, and for this we're going to use line tangent. I'm going to take my cursor, left click the big circle here, take my cursor down, and right when I get to that quadrant on that circle, I'm going to left click. Now I can come back over here, left click, and left click. Let's do the same with the smaller oval. Same thing. We're going to left click and left click. Left click and left click. And when we're done, we can right hand mouse click. Now probably the fastest way to trim this up is to use the scissor command. I'm going to hit the letter X on the keyboard, and all we have to do is just left click the geometry that we don't need. Again, all I'm doing is I'm just left clicking and left clicking, just like that. We'll continue the process to finish our ovals, and there we go. We've got our main oval, the larger oval, to represent the base of the boss, and then we have the smaller oval to represent the top of the boss. Let's double check and make sure that we're right on track. Let's head back over to the layer browser. We're going to turn our dimension layer on and back off again. We can see we're right on track. All right, now it's time to mirror the geometry. When you mirror, rotate, or move geometry, you need to select it first. You can use any of your selection tools at the top of the screen, or a shortcut is hit Control-A, Control-Alpha on your keyboard. That will select everything. I'm going to use the mirror command, and the first thing the mirror command wants us to do, we can check down here in the lower left corner, it says sketch a mirror line. Well, we know the part is 4 inches wide, so I can come up here to the grid and snap right at X 2 inches, pull my cursor down, and left click, and when we're done, we can right hand mouse click. Very good. Now let's connect the outer profile. Let's go back into the command manager, select our line tool. We're going to left click. When we're done with that line, we can right click, left click, and when we're done, we can right hand mouse click. Let's take a look at creating these fillets. If we turn our dimensions layer back on, we can see these fillets have a radius of 375 thousandths. So let's turn our dimension layer off, head back into the command manager. We're going to go into our circle tools, and there we're going to find our fillet command. The fillet radius is 375 thousandths. So I'm going to type in 0.375, and all we have to do now is just take our cursor and left click the 2 lines where we want to create the fillet. And it doesn't matter which direction we go. I'm going to left click and then hover over the next line, and notice how we get that preview. If I like that, I can left click again. So here's the process. Left click, 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 and left click. And one more time, left click and left click. And when we're done, we can right hand mouse click. Hey, I think our geometry is looking great. Let's quickly refresh our dimension layer and see if we're right on track. All right, this is looking good. Now, if we take a look at the bottom of the part, we can see that there's 2 fillets, and these fillets have a radius of 125 thousandths. If I toggle the dimension layer on and off, you can see there's a fillet here and another one right here. Let's create both of those. So I'm going to turn our dimension layer off. I'm going to head back over to the command manager, back into our fillet tool, and this time we're going to change the fillet radius to 125 thousandths. That looks good. So we're going to left click, left click, left click, and left click. And when we're done, we can right-hand mouse click. Now let's create the two circles that reside right in this area. Let's turn our dimension layer on and take a look at the properties of those. We can see this first circle has a diameter of 1 inch 600 thousandths. That's going to be created at x 2 inches, and the y value is going to be 1 inch 62 thousandths plus another inch. So that's going to be y minus 2 inches 62 thousandths. Let's create that. Let's turn our dimension layer off. Let's head over to the command manager, select our circle tool. The diameter is going to be 1 inch 600 thousandths. The x value is going to be 2 inches. I'll hit the enter key on the keyboard. The y value is going to be minus 2 inches 62 thousandths. I'll hit enter, enter one more time, and then hit the escape key on the keyboard to finish the command. Now there's another circle inside here as well. Let's turn our dimension layer on and see what that is. That has a diameter of 625 thousandths. That's going to be super easy to create. We'll head back over to the command manager, select circle. The diameter is going to be 625 thousandths. And instead of using coordinate input, we can take our cursor and just snap the center of the larger arc. And when we're done, we can right-hand mouse click. All right, now there's one more line that I'd like to create, and I'll tell you why we're going to create that. Let's turn our dimension layer back on. Notice how this part has a taper. It's a 5-degree taper. I want to create this line right here just to represent where that taper begins. That's going to help us later on when we start creating our solid model. It's very simple. This line is parallel to this line, and the parallel distance is simply 1 inch, and we can see that right here. All right, let's create that. We can easily create that by heading back into the command manager, select our line tool, and for the parallel distance, we're going to select parallel offset, and for the offset amount, that's going to be 1 inch. Now we just take our cursor, left click the line that we want to be parallel to, and then we can take our cursor and move it to the side where we want to create the line. I want the line right there, so I'm going to left click, and when I'm done, I can right-hand mouse click. Now to tidy this up, why don't we trim the edges of the line so they extend all the way to these vertical lines. We can do that by hitting the letter T on the keyboard. That's the shortcut for the trim command. That will trim one entity against another. We're going to trim that end of the line to that line. We're going to trim this end of the line to that line. And when we're done, we can right-hand mouse click. All right, this is looking good. I think we're almost finished with our wireframe geometry. There's only one thing left to do. If we were to hit the spacebar twice to go back into a CAD view, let's turn our part layer off, our dimension layer back on. We can see that the thickness of the part is 1 inch 250 thousandths, and the top of the boss is actually 1 inch away from this face right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the geometry we created that represents the top of the boss and simply move that up in Z 1 inch. So here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to turn our dimension layer off, turn our part layer back on, and let's just select the geometry that we want to move. I'm going to hit the letter S on the keyboard to go into select mode. I'm going to left click and left click the geometry that I want to move. Just simply left clicking. That looks good. And then we can do the same to the oval shape we created as well. We can just left click and left click. Now, an alternative to left clicking is you can use the chain select if you'd like. If we select chain select, you can left click, select the direction of the chain, and then hit the F3 key on the keyboard. That's another way to select the geometry. Now, with that geometry selected, we can move it. Now remember, we want to move that up in Z 1 inch. So we're going to go to the top of the screen, select our Move tool, and over here on the left within the Command Manager, we're going to type in an incremental Z value of 1 inch. Now, if you don't see the incremental input area, just click on the little plus ink sign and that will expand it down. So for this, we're going to type in 1 inch. That's going to take that selected geometry, move it up in Z 1 inch, and then we'll click OK. Very good. We can deselect our geometry by clicking this button, And that's it. We've created our wireframe geometry. And in the next video, we're going to finish the part by creating the surfaces, the solid model. We're going to join all of that together into one shape. And then we're also going to take a look at creating some cap geometry. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.